This meeting of the School Board of Trustees, subject to the open meeting law, is being recorded in accordance with section 2-2-301, 2-3-202, 2-3-203, and 2-3-214, and Montana Code Annotated. All members of the board, committee, staff, and public in attendance are advised that the public portions of the meeting will be recorded in both an audio and video format. Cameras and recording devices are placed throughout the meeting room to complete these recordings. Everyone in attendance is reminded to honor basic rules of decorum during the meeting and guidance associated with providing public comment as stated in policy 1420F. By remaining in the meeting, those present consent to being recorded and displayed in the footage that will be posted on the school district's website. Okay, there'll be an opportunity for community comments on non-agenda items at the end. We'll start with admin reports.
Okay, so admin for April and part of May, Westside, they completed their, it's the testing that qualifies students for the Gifted and Talented program when they go into third grade. They had their third quarter character award lunch, family science night on April 10th. They had the spelling bee on April 12th. Then they had their second grade students attended Ag Days at the Event Center. And it looks like they have the Richland County Sheriff's Department in eating lunch with them this month. So a lot going on there. Central, they talked about the intervention team vertical alignment. And then Lori Yellowstone went into the school and presented an outdoor presentation about electricity. And then they also had the Masons donated, it looks like 4 Kindles, and they're going to do a drawing. So it's always nice when we can get outside organizations into the schools. Middle school, Ms. Holler has a report on the middle school academic Olympics. And then Katrina Johnson has a pretty nice article. We sent her and Kim Youngquist to a national PE convention. And she writes about that. She has a nice write-up on what she did during that. High school took up about half of the packet. Just kidding, Carl. So they've got their, the attendance that they have there, talking about the AC project. We have that meeting next Tuesday. That's going to be the kickoff meeting for how that's going to work this summer. And then he also has in there the kind of the plan or the schedule for the main hallway and the bathroom floors that we're going to have done. Page 8. Oh, sorry, that wasn't even there. Mr. Barnes. He's got all of some testing scores. He did a really nice job of comparing last year's to this year's. And then I'm going to have Mr. Barnhart, when we get to the amplify portion of the discussion items, I'll have him just talk about that process and how we got to that. So you can take a look at those. You can see this year's scores are actually up when you look across the board in pretty much every category. Again, when you start looking at some of these, though, you're also just looking at class by class. So you have some classes that score well, some classes that don't score as well. This year's class scored well, so traditionally well compared to what we've seen a little bit in the past. And the writing scores are actually up quite a bit. Superintendent report, enrollment, we're sitting at 1,245, which is down from April 1,249, but up from the beginning of the year by 1. Calendar of the school events is listed there for you. The strategic plan, so we did end up getting not the strategic plan, the accreditation. We got our report card back on that. So the first thing that we looked at, when we looked at last year's, not this year's, so we're like, oh my gosh, we still, it was the first year that we've done it, and there were some 2s and different things like that. This year was much better, so we had 3 on the graduate profile. 4 is the highest that you can get. The graduate profile, for whatever reason, and it depends on who scores these, they didn't like our SMART goals within the strategic plan, on the graduate profile. So we like the goals that we have on that, so we just left them, we didn't go in to correct that. So we got 4s on everything else, so we were pretty happy that those came in that way. Now I think they don't just take this score though for next year, they take an average of the 2. So they're not going to be this high when it goes out to the public, but this year our scores are actually really, we did well on the accreditation. Curriculum, so the admin team, the majority of our meetings lately have kind of revolved around staffing, which this time of year they pretty much do, and I know Sarah talked about the massive amount of resignations that she noticed, but we see a lot of those this time of year. But we're actually in pretty good shape when you start to break everything down. So if you look at Westside, as we move Jordan into the middle school principal position, we'll need one special ed teacher there. That's a really important one. And we need a kindergarten teacher still and a first grade teacher. We have been getting applications in, so we've hired for some of these positions already. But that school, right, I mean, we're not sitting great, but we're in decent shape. Central School is filled, with the exception of your aides are filled too, I think. Secretary and that'll be at the end of this year, so we posted for that, so that's really the only position there. A middle school, after we transferred this last week, they just need a computers tech teacher. And that's an important one because it's a CTE position, so we do get funding for that. So we'll continue to look. The nice thing about middle school is you just need an elementary ed endorsement to teach any of those classes. So it's not like we have to go find somebody specifically that has a computers or tech degree. In the high school, we're also short one special ed teacher there, but we do have a plan. If we had to start tomorrow, we'd have a plan for that. And in the high school, AD, activities director. We did get an application on that late last week, and we have another person that they're very interested in it. I got to call them back and give them some information on numbers. And then the only other position there would also be a SPED teacher. We've been running there with one short for the last few years, and their caseload has allowed that. So we'd love to be fully staffed there, but we also know we have to have plans in place in case we're not. So really, we're not in that bad a shape. The other thing is we'll really start kind of looking at aid positions and things like that as we get into June. Buildings and grounds, I have a list there of the things that we have going on. Intercom and Bell, that's kind of the big one. So we're gonna have IT is gonna have to work with our contractor on the high school AC project to try to get in and get some runs through the gym when they take that week off in June. So hopefully that'll allow that project to be completely finished by the time school starts. That's obviously a huge safety concern if you don't have intercoms in all of your classes. So, NEMAS and legislative update, the STARS Act was signed by the governor on May 8th. Nikki and Tracy and I worked on just some certain pieces of that today. Did we submit that?
Yes.
So it's submitted and sent off. So that'll end up being a little over $550,000 that we'll get from that. It was weird just how that ended up, because in April they were talking about you need an MOU, then it transitioned into some other agreement, then it needed to be a board policy, and then at the end they said, if you're meeting these requirements already, you don't need anything. So our current master agreement is the only document that we need to prove that we're meeting the minimum requirements of that. I threw in the numbers from the safety committee. If you look at number 4 on the high school, that is not since November of 2023, that's November of 2024. I did catch that, I apologize, I didn't change that, but those are the injury reports that we've had since November. We've got that all in place, and then you can see the year to date is part B there. So last year, about this time, another 2 weeks, we had 129 total student injury reports. That sounds like a ton, it's really not. You have to write those up for almost everything. If a kid falls on the playground and they need a Band-Aid, we have to write that up. So it's not like we had 118 broken arms and legs. It was just really, it's minor things most of the time. And then with sports, you're supposed to write those up as coaches. If you have people that sprain ankles, things like that, they're supposed to be included. So not too bad. And then you can see the employee injuries on there as well. The only thing that I would note on the employee ones, and this is a concern of mine, and it's been a concern for the last couple of years, where you see under number 2 at the end, force were caused by student behaviors. We're seeing a lot more of that, especially at the younger level. You see it turned into much more significant injuries. Threat assessment, we didn't have any to review. I think we'll have one for the next, I'll go over part of the next one. We didn't review any of those though. Labor management met Wednesday, April 30th. So the main concern from one to start with was after the end of school, and even right now, we don't have any nighttime custodians at Central. It's been just a nightmare. We've had no applications. We have 4 student workers over there right now that are working at night. And as many of you know, if students are not always supervised, they tend to not necessarily do what you ask them to do. So we had to revisit some of the expectations on that, but hopefully that improves. And then the big thing is gonna be our summer plan for there. Right now, we're looking at hopefully getting West Side done with you approving to get all of their floors done. That'll cut way back on the amount of time they have to spend waxing all the floors. So hopefully that's gonna help that crew finish early and they can come over to Central and we'll try to get as much done as we possibly can. And then in the meantime, it'd be great if we could hire some more custodians. The big one we talked about though is the mentor program. If you look in the master agreement, the mentor program and decisions about the mentor program, while they're ultimately, at the end of the day, they're up to you, you don't have to go into an MOU in order to make changes for that. It's labor management can talk about it and send a recommendation to the board. The board can say yes or no, and then we can change the language in the master agreement based on that decision. So, and we'll talk about that. There was something on the mentor program later on in the packet. Job openings, you can see we have there, and then we have the resignations. Again, many resignations, most of those are filled. And there's also some coaching resignations, quite a few coaching resignations in there as well. Transfers, Cheryl Hansen is transferring from 1st grade to 2nd grade. Christine Tharp is transferring from 3rd grade to music teacher, Central School music teacher. Marie Haller, middle school technology to middle school math, and Jennifer McLaughlin is transferring from 4th grade to 3rd grade teacher. That's the superintendent with the resignation letter. So, let's see, where's
Page 31.
okay? Not here when we're talking about that.
That's your minutes.
Okay,
So,
are we ready? Yep. Okay, so on page 31 is the beginning of the board meeting minutes for April. Hopefully you had a chance to look through those. If there's any changes, now would be a good time to let us know so we can make and note those changes. I shouldn't even number this. Page 38 is the start of the financial reports. That's where we have the check register. See, the very first thing on there is the action auto. We got our drivers at vehicle in. Have they been able to use it yet? Do you know, Mr. Barnhart?
Yes, they have been using it.
Excellent. So, that was good. If you look on page 40, so we didn't have this report at the April meeting, so this is the March county treasurer report. That's the investments. And then after that, we also have the April county treasurer report, starting on page 43. Page 44, budgeted funds report of expenditures. You can see where our unexpended balance is and the percentage of what has been expended, for both the elementary and the high school. Page 46, that would be the general fund revenue received and anticipated. As you can see, oil and gas we have on here. And I'll give you a better printout of the oil and gas, just specifically on what we received this year. We're down about 20% from where we were at last year with oil and gas. So where that falls, I guess, it's really going to depend on production again, and things that happen nationally and globally. 47, 11-month comparison through March. And then we have 48 updated cash balances from March. We did have one voided check multiple voided checks, it's checks 28,552 through 28,565 are voided. Page 50 is the start of our ASB check register. Looking through those, it's a lot of travel for activities, not just sports, but this seems to be the time of clubs. You got the choir, band, they go on a lot of trips right now.
We have any summer events going on, or things that we need to approve for kids to go anywhere this summer?
The only one that I would anticipate we're probably gonna get is, I think every year in June, wrestling, I think, takes a bus to Minneapolis, because they go to that camp, and then they fly to Florida from there. So I know they just went on one, they went to Iowa, and I worked with Guy on that. And the biggest thing, the thing that I will say that I'm, last year, and this is where when we finished this, it was a little bit confusing, because when we ended, it wasn't like it was a clear, and, I mean, it was like a year and a half of us talking around that whole thing. And by the end of it, yeah, we had a plan, and the biggest thing was, yes, we're still gonna support our teams, if they wanna go, our students and our activities. If it's an outside group, we have a scale for how we charge for that. I did it out for the wrestling to go to Iowa, and it was like $17,000, I think, the way that we had it on our deal. And I scaled that back, and they're one of our groups. And I was clear with, Coach Melby that our kids have to ride on our buses. I know last year when we did this, David had mentioned that the insurance was figured out because they put insurance on one of our buses. I don't think that was the case though this year. And that'll be the thing in June, that if they're gonna take one of our buses, that's gonna have to happen. Otherwise, we don't wanna take on that liability, but if they have the ability to put one of our buses on their insurance, I guess last year when they said it was taken care of, I hate to say that it was an assumption, but I would have thought that they would have done the same thing, but that was not the case, so.
I think it probably needs to come in front of the board too.
And we can, but here's the thing on that, I used to do that.
Yep.
And then you guys didn't wanna, you just said, just take care of it.
No,
So
I think
did.
the problem was, we never got it till after it was done.
I'm talking about every one of these,
I know.
and I brought every one of them to you guys.
Yeah.
And then you basically said you didn't wanna deal with it, I can just make the decision, so that's, I mean, that's where it landed.
Well, I just need to make sure it's covered then, everything on insurance, cause it's a liability to the school. I mean, it's one that we weren't real crazy about anyway, about the bus thing, so.
I agree.
You can do what you wanna do with it, but I'm just telling you, if it comes down and something happens, it's not gonna be pretty on it, because it's gonna be the school, it's gonna be liable for it, whether you got insurance or not. You know they're gonna come back after us.
I agree, I do, and it's ultimately your guys' decision
Yeah.
on how you wanna handle it. I mean,
It's up to you guys, but I think we need to know about it when we got school property going off the lot that's for a non-school function. At least know about it.
Okay.
You agree?
But I mean, we talked
I mean,
about that for like,
I know.
it's 2 years.
Well, we veered around it so many times, I mean, because none of us really wanted,
No one wants to be the bad guy.
nobody wants to deal with it. I mean, nobody wants the school bus to go out of here that's not for a school event.
Brent, is the football thing gonna be this, you know, they're going to Dickinson for that camp?
Yes.
I mean, that's gonna be the same thing, right? Like, we're gonna have a bunch of football players. There are kids, but it's out of season.
That's what I brought up to David,
And-
he thought that would be okay.
Yeah.
I think the board needs to know when we got our equipment going out of, especially out of the state, that, you know, I know we talked about not having no kids that aren't our kids from our school, but
Right.
I think we need to know about it. I don't say we gotta sign something off and agree on it, but I think we need to know about it. It's just a huge liability to me. I don't like it, honestly, but, you know, it's,
In all honesty, I think they've just purchased a second bus.
Yeah.
To try to avoid some of that, but I don't know if they still needed another.
it's just a
one. It's just-
huge deal anymore. I just, you get fought on that stuff all the time.
I guess, when you approve one, just send an email.
Yeah.
Like you do any other update.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That
Yep.
way, everyone's in the loop, it doesn't catch anybody off guard, you know, you don't get the call of.
Yeah.
I just saw an Eagle bus in
Right.
Minneapolis, what's going on?
Yep, I can definitely do that.
There's no good with it, I mean, I get it, it's just, I think we all need to know about it, so
Yep.
if a board member gets called and
Yep. No, I think that's probably the best way to handle it.
like you said, a bus in Minneapolis, you go,
Is
what?
it just an insurance issue that you want to make sure we're covered with? the
Yeah, and
insurance?
I think hopefully Dave knows about them, I mean, he's kind of the guy behind the insurance side of it,
Yeah.
I think he's the one that worked on the last one that was approved.
yeah. Okay,
Yes, I did. So Brent, let's just take another look at that and let's just put a little checklist together to make sure that you have all his documents, or Martin has the documents that he needs to make us, to satisfy us.
Okay,
Okay?
that works for me.
All right.
on to the next. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. But there's gonna be one coming in June.
I think that's fine.
And I'm fine with it, just
Yeah.
make sure we're covered as much as we can, and we know,
Yeah,
I guess.
I think we're all in a similar spot.
Yeah.
And I think we're all fine with the
Yep, we're fine with that, I just,
Just the, you know, a quick email that lets us know, hey, I approve this, this group's taking it here, which you did with the West Iowa. We got the email and, you know, you laid out what you, the expectations you'd put forward, so.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
think we're fine with that.
And I can put together a checklist and make sure that everything's covered.
Yep.
on those as
yep.
well. Okay. Okay.
I see the rest of it as well, so that should alleviate some of the amount of transportation or that they require.
Yeah,
Or I
Lisa
would-
had
I
said
would
that.
think.
Yeah, Lisa had mentioned that, so yeah, that'll help.
What did they buy?
That second bus.
Oh,
Culbertson, but it's gonna be, it's white, and it's gonna have eagles on it, so it's still gonna say Sidney
Yeah.
Eagles, I mean, and the other one does too, it looks just like our
I think
bus.
technically they're not supposed to.
Well, they should probably change the name on it.
I mean,
I think they're
the
valid
reason that
right
they do
now.
that, and this has happened before, even since I've been here. So, I get a call about how awful of a bus driver we have.
Right.
And I look, I'm like, well, we weren't even there. But it's like, but wrestling went somewhere for something, and parents, I mean, you get some of those, and sometimes they're valid and sometimes they're not, but at the same time, like, we don't necessarily need our name attached to those situations either. Okay. I've made notes of all that, so I'll make sure that I get that taken care of.
So I,
What's that?
I was just gonna say, I think they leave for Minneapolis like middle of June, I don't know if we'll meet before.
We don't need to meet,
Yeah.
it's just.
It's just
I'll
fun.
just,
we
I'll
got
just
a
make sure I
checklist.
communicate it out to all of you when that happens. If you're texting Guy, maybe let him know
No,
to get
I'm
that
not
in.
texting him, I was just looking at Pam and going, oh yeah, I could.
Hint, hint, wouldn't mind. Okay, page 54 is continuation of check register for ASB, which runs through, it looks like, geez, there's a lot of checks. Page 63. 64, you can see just where the account balances are at for the ASB accounts. So for our new board members, ASB, they're the Associated Student Body Accounts. So they'll create these it used to be much larger, especially with athletics, so like football had their own ASB account. Every single one had their own, and then it was kind of divvied up. Now the state they require us to put everything under one athletic account, so I mean, that kind of helped a little bit, but there's a number of, ASB accounts, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think some of these are even in operation. But, anyway,
What happens to that talent account, I mean, it's fairly large.
it is, so we actually have two people the person running it resigned, and we have two people that are interested. So I was gonna approach them to see if they wanted to do it together, or if they wanted to do it separately. It ends up being a lot.
Yeah,
It does. It's healthy, you can see that.
Yeah.
The account is healthy, but, I was gonna maybe reach out to them and see if that's something they'd wanna do.
It gets divvied up at the end of the year according to which groups
Oh,
were,
yeah.
which groups were.
Yeah, right.
yeah, it's a large number.
So then, like, we did a shift during when we hosted speech and drama, so then we get a portion of that.
We usually leave like a $2,000 carryover balance for cash or something, but it all gets divvied.
Alright. Okay, questions on financials? Okay, MHSA dues, catastrophic insurance and concussion insurance start on page 70. So those numbers did not change from last year. So as you're going through that, I'm gonna pull the consent agenda because I'm pretty sure I wrote that specifically in there. We pay like $4,500 for all of our sports teams up front. Because we have 18 different activities, and they are $250 per activity. So that's where that one ended up. Then when you go to the page 72, that's the liability insurance. We pay $625 for that. That did not go up from last year. And then the catastrophic insurance, we pay $171. Yeah, we pay $171, and that also did not go up from last year. Page 76, that's the MQEC coalition agreement. That's a group, Quality Educator Coalition. They do a lot of lobbying for us at legislative sessions, and then they also offer different resources to the district. That due also at $2,500 did not go up from last year. MTSBA, I'll be honest, I wavered on this one a tiny bit. But at the end of the day, what they're able to do with putting policies together as quickly as they do, and the amount of work that would go into that, like I would imagine next fall is gonna be a lot of fun as they start bringing us all of our changed board policies that came out of this last legislative session. I mean, sometimes you'll see like 20 policies. Those would be good days to be sick, I'm not gonna lie, they're kind of boring, but they haven't changed since last year. 2 years ago, we paid more in dues than we have the last two, so they haven't gone up. I think it's worth continuing. If we get to a point where we're not satisfied with their services, I do know there's 2 other groups in Montana that do that. And we can look at the potential of that at that point as well. Okay, page 78, that is the Healthy is Wellness that we started this year in just the second semester. We actually had 70 participants in that in the district, which is quite a few considering Miles City. I don't think they're the other school that would maybe kind of compare. They're just barely more than us, and they've had it for quite a while. So the participation with that, I thought it was good, and we only offered the minimum of what we could do. So I'm proposing that we offer much more for these people because obviously there was a huge interest, and allowing them to, like, they do virtual visits in between sessions. There's a number of things, if you look through this, that they're gonna offer. You got the body composition wellness, biometrics, movement health, personalized coaching, but so that would come at a total cost of $6,500. I honestly think it would be worth it to continue. JPT, which we've already agreed to go with, they cover half of the cost when they come in, so it's like $500 per session for us. So we get it at a reduced rate, and even if you look, they have numbers and data on how our staff did this year. So we've made a difference, at least with the overall wellness of some of these folks. So I'm a big fan of it. I think we should do it. If you want me to pull that one off the consent agenda, if you don't want to go that route, just let me know. We can vote on that one separately.
I'd do it.
Leave it. Okay.
Hey, Brant, can I suggest?
Yeah.
Hey, so just on that healthy as wellness, so one of the things that you didn't bring up, or I didn't hear, but testing for your A1C for
yes.
diabetes.
Yeah.
So there's direct correlations, and I've seen it work in the city of Sidney, in Richland County, in various counties throughout the state, that there are markers in those tests that we have that actually can show people the pre-diabetic range of their blood. So and that's when I overall look at all of the data discounts that we have on the health insurance side, it's the diabetes, drugs are the killers. And then the cost for the diabetic drug, and that makes up really the largest portion of what the pharmaceutical benefits make up the largest portion of really your health insurance increases. So if you can get out in front of those, that's $6,500 and JPT takes half of that, it's a steal, it's a bargain, so I'm all for it.
Yeah, and Ashley and I met last week, and she did talk about the A1C and how important that is. And then also talked about the, heart, cardiovascular health and that sort of thing. So I think it's great myself, and I think that as part of like our strategic plan, we've talked about, focusing on mental and physical wellness for our staff, and this is one way that we can provide them that. Okay. Policy changes, really big one here. So if you look on page 84, on the very top, it's authorization, we're gonna strike to carry, or self-administered. It's gonna be authorization for physician prescribed medication. That's the only change to that form. We have to run these through board policy since they're in board policy. The other one, and I may, for the next board meeting, I might have a little more that we're gonna strike from that, but this is authorization for over-the-counter medication, because they talk about, physicians down here. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily applicable with this form, but it'd be the same thing there, and then we're gonna strike in the middle of that, if she has used her asthma inhaler as prescribed and does not have relief from an asthma attack, she is to alert in adults. Okay. Next is our canine contract. I feel like they've done a nice job. Maybe Mr. Dennison can speak a little bit to that, but.
It'd be great. He was actually in today, so we did a full sweep on the building and parking lot, and he's efficient, quick, good to work with, does good communication. Been really impressed with the changeover, since Keith was retired.
Here's a question for the students in the room. How many of you knew about it ahead of time?
Should question the principal,
I
how many
just-
do we have? He called me, he had some change plans and could fit us in, so we just ran with it, so we didn't interrupt senior testing tomorrow.
So, yeah, we've been happy with that. Okay, and then the last one on the consent agenda, so this is an Ed Mentor, it's called, program. So, we currently use Accelis for like alt ed, credit recovery. We're not super happy with the rigor. We haven't been super happy with the rigor. When we got into it, we got locked into a 3-year contract, but at the time, made sense. We had COVID money. It was what we were already using. So Shane's done a lot of research on Edmentum. This is gonna allow us to really make these a little bit more customized to like the teachers that we have. They look at the program and you'd wanna add maybe a project that they would have, a writing assignment, things like that. We can add those in with this program. And the program itself is more rigorous than Accelis. Accelis was frustrating at times if the kid really was ambitious. They could get through a year's worth of material in a matter of about 3 weeks. So it was really not doing what we wanted it to do. So we're hoping to go away from it. This actually costs less. Accelis cost us about a little over $40,000, Nikki and I figured today, over 3 years. This would be closer to like 35,000. I think it's around 12,000, about 36,000, about 12,000 a year. So.
It has 25 more licenses also.
And we get 25 more licenses. So when we first had Accelis, it was like unlimited licenses, because we didn't know if we were gonna be on site the whole time, that was a big seller for us. And then we ended up using it for alt ed, then it turned into students that are working off-site for whatever reason. So we had about 100 licenses, and then they started way overcharging for that. I think we're actually down to 50 licenses with them, and it's more expensive than this, so.
Is Accelis done? Are we done with them or what?
Well, if we approve this, we are. That contract ends June 30th.
Okay.
So this would actually give Shane some time to kind of look at that, because we will have kids in this summer that'll be needing credit recovery. So part of it would be approving to get this program. The other part is going to be to recognize it as a program that the district will allow students to obtain credit through. So you have the ability to do that if the state doesn't recognize it as something that they want to give credit for, but you still have the ability to do that. So that would be the second part of my recommendation that'll be in the consent agenda. Questions? Let's go. It's a lot of paperwork for, okay. Approval of minutes. All recorded board meeting minutes must be reviewed and approved at the following board meeting. If you review the meeting minutes, please make note of any additions or changes that need to be made. Recommend to approve the board meeting minutes for the board meeting on April 14th, 2025 with any noted or necessary agreed upon changes. Warrants and claims in accordance with board policy 7326. All financial obligations and disbursements must be properly documented. The documentation must specifically describe the goods, services required and proper budget item for appropriation. Recommend to approve all claims, payments, and cancellations as presented. ASB accounts and transfers in accordance with board policy 7425. The board of trustees shall conduct a monthly review of the ASB account balances reported by the deputy fund custodian. Recommend to approve ASB balances, transfers, payments, combined listed accounts and voided checks as presented above. 2025-26 membership dues liability catastrophe and concussion plan. I already went through all of that with you. If you want me to do it again, I can, but I would recommend to approve the 25-26 MHSA dues liability catastrophe and concussion plan as presented. 25-26 Montana Quality Educator Coalition. Again, this is a group that fights for fair and equitable funding for public schools throughout Montana. They're also responsible for the creation of school laws that protect funding for public schools and create a system for how the funding is allocated. Recommend to the renewal of our membership with MTBC for the 25-26 school year. MTSBA annual dues, again, we will probably take a look, like a hard look at this throughout this next year. May change, may not. I would recommend to pay the yearly MTSBA dues for the 25-26 school year. Healthy as Wellness, I would recommend to approve the Healthy as Wellness contract for the 25-26 school year as presented above. First reading of board policy 3416, Form 1 and Form 2. I recommend to approve the first reading of board policy 3416, Form 1 and Form 2 as presented. 25-26 K316 detection contract. Recommend to approve the contract with K316 detection for the 25-26 school year as presented. I should note on this, there's going to be a $20 increase per deployment for a total of $395 per deployment. And there's a 24-hour notice of cancellation clause that was included. Payment not made after 120 days from billing will incur a 5% additional fee and a charge of 3.75% for paying electronically. Those were not in the contract before, they've been included since. Really the biggest one for us is it's a $20 increase per deployment, which, fair enough. Edmentum curriculum purchase and acknowledgement. I recommend to approve the purchase of the Edmentum curriculum and recognize this as a means to grant credit to students in all subjects it provides when deemed necessary by administrators. New hires, Allison Harris, elementary guidance counselor for 25-26. Wanda Benson, first grade teacher. Kimberly Halverson, fourth grade teacher. Sheree Slade, assistant speech and drama coach / fall and spring play advisor. Gail Stephenson, head speech and drama coach. Niall Obertfeld, assistant high school football coach. Max Lazada, student custodian at Central. Recommend to improve the employment of the recommended hires for the 25-26 school year pending reference to that contract. And that's a consent agenda.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. David?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so winter coaching contracts, we had, our speech and drama coach resigned, cheer coach resigned, and boys basketball coach resigned. So we only have 3. Mine I separate because that's not something I'm gonna give a recommendation on, that's something you can discuss and decide. So wrestling, I have the same same thing that I write up for each one of these, just because that's the process that we go through when we do this. Do you want me to read that once?
I don't want you to read it all.
Okay.
Do you want Chris to say anything?
Yeah, and we'll have Chris talk on each of these as well. So I have wrestling, we'll have dance, and then we'll get to basketball. So go ahead, Chris.
Okay. I got my little printout thing that I've done the last couple of years. Just a little recap of how each team did this year.
Changeover day, we all show up for that one.
So just starting from the beginning, speech and drama. 23 students. I think they had a few more than that here and there, but a lot of kids try speech and drama and then decide it's not for them after a couple weeks. But 23 consistent, and you can see the placings they took at state and at divisionals. Christy was really excited about the speech and debate, took 8th place. That's the best they've done in a number of years. Drama team's always competitive in Class A. So you can see all the different individual placings there as well. But yeah, Christy did resign. She's moving to East Helena. So Gail was an assistant after 1 year, after being the longtime head coach, and now she wants to go back into that, and then Charisse move into the assistant position. So definitely recommend that to keep that team strong. Gail does a really good job with them, and Christy did a great job this last season as well. So it's going to be tough to lose her. Next one there is wrestling. Had a lot of participants this year, and Coach Melby was really excited that I think we maybe had one kid at the beginning that ended up stepping away, but 31 boys and 5 girls. Last year we only had 19 boys and no girls, so the numbers are improving big time. And again, very competitive, took 2nd place, the boys did at state. Girls at state took 14th out of all the Class A schools that have girls wrestling. And that 5 girls number is the most we've had so far in girls, which is great to see that as well. And you can see in there all the different placings for our individuals and teams at divisionals and state. Guy was really happy with this season. Next one there is basketball. Girls struggling a little bit with the numbers. They had a number of injuries as well this year that hindered them even more, and that limited their C squad games this season. Brent can talk about that a little bit too, but that was the biggest issue I think from the girls squad, was just the number and the amount of injuries and illness that we had this season. Boys had 28, so full 3 squads all year long. Our all-conference honorees there. With wrestling, it's a top 6 for all-conference at divisionals and state. And then basketball is a coach's vote, so we had 2 girls make honorable mention all-conference.
Second team.
Oh, you're right. Both second team, not honorable mentions. I copied and pasted and then deleted the wrong one.
That's
My bad. And then it shows our varsity record there. How they did in the postseason is also included there. Next one is the cheer and drill team. Drill team had the same 9 girls all season long, fall and winter. They went to 2 different competitions. They didn't go to Lewistown this year, which is one they've done the last couple of years, but they went to Mandan and Williston, and you can see they did pretty well at those events. Coach Zwanny was really happy with those events and wants to keep attending those. North Dakota has actual school-sponsored dance or drill team, so it's a little more robust and a little more legitimate than the Lewistown event, which is more cheerleading oriented. So she'd like to see the team go to those a little more often. And then the cheer team, 13 in the fall, 8 in the winter, and that's due to different kids doing different activities during those seasons. And they took first in Class A at Cheerfest again. So well represented at that event. That's not a huge event as far as team participation, but it's nice to see that we're always at the top of that one. And then just a list of some different things we did this winter. Some of this stuff is repetitive year after year. The 2C and Eastern C basketball tournaments. That Eastern C one at the bottom is going to now be on a 3-year rotation. between Miles City, Glasgow, and Sidney, and that's due to some conference realignments that they've done. In past years, we had to bid for that, so now it's not necessarily a bid process, it's just a rotation. And then the 2C tournament will continue to always host that in February. Brawl in the East, we'll continue to try and find teams. We like to go back and forth with Glendive and showcase the wrestling and basketball teams. That's a really fun event to show both teams off. So next year, if we don't do it with Glendive and Sidney, we'll find someone else. Maybe Glasgow would be a good opponent for that one. And then some different youth basketball, cheer, drill team, and wrestling events. We started those a couple years ago and just showing off the little kids, bringing them to our games, and letting them, stand in the anthem and be at the starting lineups for games has been really fun to see that. And then there's the recommendations for the winter coaches next season. Obviously, Brent mentioned the 3 resignations, but I would highly recommend those other 3 to return to their current positions.
Okay.
Any questions?
I do appreciate you can black this out this time.
Yeah. Save on the printer ink a little bit.
Okay, so start with wrestling.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Based upon the recommendation from Mr. Lee in the evaluation process, I recommend the rehire of Guy Melby for the 25-26 wrestling season.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, then dance coach, based upon the recommendation from Mr. Lee in the evaluation process, I recommend the rehire of Wesley Solani for the 25-26 dance season.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, girls basketball coach, so this one's up for discussion, obviously it's a board decision, anything you want, any information you want from me, I can certainly.
Do you have a motion to rehire Brent Sukin for the 2025-2026 girls basketball season?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
You have anything? I mean, is it taxing on you to do both jobs? I mean, any concerns? I mean,
It's fine, honestly, like if I had to say like a time of year that's a little slower for me in this office, it's probably been, which if you were talking about doing a spring sport, absolutely not, like there's way too much going on right now to try to do that. Fall's kind of the same, and we get kicked off right away, that would be really challenging, but the way that it lines up, I feel like it's pretty manageable. And we don't have a ton of games during the week, a lot of them do end up falling Thursday night, Friday, Saturday. If it was like how this track and baseball season and softball season have gone, it'd be like, we wouldn't be in the office hardly ever, so. No, I enjoy it, I feel like we're making progress in the right direction as well, and, yeah. Both of my assistants plan on coming back if we get rehired, so we have that as well.
Alright, so moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, amplify. So, we currently use, let me get to my slide here.
Currently use into reading.
Into reading, okay, so this was purchased back in like 2018, and we gave the teachers a year before we had them go into the program, so that gave them a year to do all their pacing guides, get all their units planned out, all that good stuff. So these things typically cycle about every 5-6 years, when you buy a basal program. So this is, knew this was coming, and I'll let Mr. Barnhart speak to the process that they went through to come up with this program.
So we looked at 5 programs. We kind of limited the number we're looking at because we wanted something that's going to be current. We didn't want to go back to something that was written in 23-24 that's going to expire in 30-31. So we looked at 5 different programs. One was pretty much a scripted program where it has everything written out for you as a teacher, and you're instructing just basically reading off the script. We looked at one that is almost all novel based, And then we looked at a couple more that are more of a basal format. The things that I had them concentrate on were our weakest areas in testing, which is phonics. Our current program does phonics through grade 2, and then it kind of drops once they get to 3rd grade. And so we're seeing that effect with those students in grades 3 through 5. And then the other is dealing with being able to pull out detail when they're doing reading. Most of them can read fluently and they can comprehend, but they can't pick out the details, the important details within what they're reading. So we wanted a program that would also address that area for us as well. And Montana is coming up with new ELA standards, and they go into effect July of 2025. So we also wanted a curriculum that was going to meet the new Montana standards and also the science of reading, which deals with fluency, comprehension, vocabulary, and phonics, phonemic awareness. So we looked at them, we had presentations, we had a committee of teachers from Westside and from Central to look at this, and they all voted on it, and the majority of the grades voted for Amplify CKLA as the program that they would like to use. The second program was from Savaz. We had 2 grade levels that had that as their number 1, and they had Amplify as their number 2. So looking at their results and meeting with the principals, the recommendation was to go ahead and go with Amplify. If you see the price on there, Amplify, the first quote is about $170,000. That covers everything, grades K through 5, all the teacher additions, and materials that we need to have. It is a 6-year contract where our current one that we were using into reading was a 5-year contract. So for the last 2 years, we've been going beyond our contract and ordering additional supplies to keep that program going. So my recommendation would be to approve the CKLA. Again, we'll do the professional development with the staff next school year, give them a chance. Since we're doing curriculum mapping, they'll also be able to take that and put it right into the Atlas platform and have the curriculum mapping part of this done as well. If we don't go with the program, they're going to have to curriculum map into reading, and then next year they're going to have to, whatever program we go with, they'd have to do it over again. So just for ease of transition and everything else, my recommendation would be to go ahead and go with this program. I'm open to any questions if you have any questions.
No, I think we're good. So, I mean, it said something about implementation 18 months, but basically it would go into effect next summer.
Yeah, we'd start professional development in January,
Okay.
actually on-site professional development, that's
Yeah.
part of the quote, and then get the teachers, they'll have the materials in their hands prior to that so that they can start working with it.
Okay.
And then we'll actually do the on-site and the virtual professional development up until the next school year.
Perfect.
So when we came up with our plan, like with Atlas and how we were going to go through the curriculum mapping and that whole process, one thing that we knew that was coming up was a new reading program. Typically, you probably would start, if you're gonna do a project like that, with reading. We chose to go with math because if we're gonna change in another year or 2, we don't need them to go through the same process in 2 years. So, and then we'll give them a year. We did the same thing when we got our last math series. We gave them a year to look at it and actually figure out how it was gonna work for them, I guess. Sometimes when you approve these in May and they have to fire them up in August, it's just not quite enough time for them to.
This is the program Glendale is switching to, and I believe Culbertson is using this at either the K2 or the 3-5 level as well, so.
Okay, I recommend to approve the purchase of the reading program Amplify starting in the 25-26 school year.
Grab a motion. So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. David?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, on to the mentor program stipend and director increases. So we met at LMC, we talked about kind of the history of this. I went back as far as I could find where, so mentor teachers in 2010, probably even before that, would get $500 for the year to mentor a new teacher to the district. If they did an additional teacher, they would get $250. observe, they go into the new teachers' classrooms and observe. It's a really great program. Dan Farr actually is the one that developed it, and that's when they got it implemented. We still have schools that call us asking if they can just take all of our stuff and develop their program around this one, so. Regardless, so basically when we talk, the state is starting a mentor program, through a grant, of course, where they're offering $3,000 to mentor teachers, which is not feasible for us, I understand that, but we're really struggling to get more teachers to mentor. Like, it's kind of like the old teacher shortage. If you're doing it correctly, it's time consuming, so some people just don't want to take the extra time, which is fine. So my recommendation would be to bump the mentor teacher from 800 to 1,000. And in the event they do 2 teachers, they would get an additional $500. So if they did 2, it'd be a total of $1,500 for the whole year. Karen is the program coordinator, Karen Polari. She was talking about the number of hours that she puts in. She started to keep track of that this year, and she said she did by October. So from July 1st to the PIR days in October, she'd already put in over 100 hours just in this program alone. So she was making $1,800, and I would propose we bump that to $3,000 for the year. Again, it's extremely time consuming. I mean, if you do the math on that, that's about, just for 1 quarter, you're putting in about 100 hours. So I guess my recommendation would be to approve the increase for the mentor and mentor program coordinator compensation as presented, and with any discussion.
How many new teachers do we have next year?
Oh, no, that's the other thing. So like when we have teachers that transfer, even if they're a veteran teacher, they go into the mentor program. And we don't always do it, so like you take like someone that's taught 2nd grade for 15 years and they go to 1st grade, like we don't necessarily do it. But if they go to like like when Karen went from elementary to high school, then you have a mentor teacher.
Okay, so like Cheryl Hanson, we need a mentor this year because she's switching grades?
She could,
If you
yeah,
have one.
yeah.
Okay, and then, so if we're looking, so we're talking 400 hours, I mean, or let's call it 300 hours.
Yeah, because she does some of the work in the summer.
Right, exactly. Okay, I just wonder if it's enough.
Well, what we're talking about and what I brought up with labor management is when we do negotiations, we probably should add that director position into that matrix at the end, which would probably be based off of her daily rate anyway. I mean, they kind of figure those out differently. So I'm guessing after negotiations, it may go up again.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I was just, obviously, you know, I know what some of our coaches get paid, and this is a full year thing, not just.
Yep.
And I know that coaching is a season, and then there's a lot of free time work that goes into that too, so, yeah, okay. I mean, obviously it's a big jump, and obviously we'll be back into negotiations. Some of us will. Do I have a motion to approve the increase?
So, go ahead.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
David?
Start raising your hand like that, we can't hear you.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, page 105. Okay, so I have a request for a leave of absence. So this individual, in writing, gave me reasons for wanting to do this. He also had a conversation with me about this. He had conversations with Mr. Dennison and Mr. Coriel about the reasons that he's wanting to do this. And from my conversations with those two and with him, he has legit reasons for wanting to do this. This process it's difficult, and again, when negotiations comes up, if these are gonna keep popping up, I think we're gonna have to come up with a criteria do have somebody that has agreed that they would. That's a big one. The other one is the school doesn't pay for the insurance for the year. And then all of their leave is frozen, so they don't accumulate leave, but they can't take any leave during the leave of absence. These are they're challenging, they are. You have to try to look at it from every angle, and then also let your staff know that you support them and you wanna help them out in situations that would deem us appropriate. So, I don't take this recommendation lightly, just because of the conversations that I've had with him and what I've had with Mr. Dennison and Mr. Coriel. But I do think that if you agree to a leave of absence, I'll send him a contract like I sent the last one, stating they have to give the board written notification of their plan to return for the 26-27 school year by February of 26. And that they understand all of the stipulations that go with it. Again, they would pay for their own insurance. They're still on our insurance plan, but they're paying for all of that on their own. And then the leave freeze. Is there anything else that you would like? Now, that's not to say, and this is just for the future. I'm not saying that this will get approved. All I'm saying is there anything else you would like to see added to that contract with the staff members?
No, because everything freezes, like, it's not just their position in our, obviously, when they come back, it'll be a different pay scale.
Right.
Because that increases every year
Right.
anyways, but their spot.
Yep.
On the chart stays. So yeah, I think this is the only way to do it at this point. And like you said, it's probably something that can be brought up with negotiations.
Yeah. That way we have a better process to follow when we do this, and I don't wanna set past practice. And I think that by doing what we're doing and letting them know what we're letting them know, we can still look at these on a case-by-case basis, like it allows us to do that.
Right, yeah, that's what we talked about with the last one. Yeah, cause the only, and that's my biggest concern is that you're holding a spot for somebody.
Right.
And in this case, where we are essentially hiring somebody to fill this spot.
Right.
Then you're like, okay, if there's no more spot, thanks, you worked here for 1 year and you bailed us out, have a nice life. I don't like that aspect of it.
Right.
But, if we're doing it for the betterment of our staff, obviously I think that's been our goal, is to support the district, the staff, the students, everyone involved, so, if we can make it work, just like the last scenario, it was gonna be fine, this scenario seems like it's gonna work.
Yeah, and to maybe even add to it, I think that the other piece we wanna add in, when possible, like if they're gonna put in for, let's say they request a leave in February, and like with that one, it's like, well, we thought we had everything was good, and then all of a sudden we get all these notifications, like, we'll make that approved